right. Okay, guys. Well, welcome to another federal fiscal grants communities of practice. I'm doing it all this morning, so bear with me as I admit people, and I may be a little choppy today. All right, so today we're going to just kind of have a smaller group. We'll still do our congratulations and celebrations and shout outs. We're going to do some housekeeping. So we will still talk about the different news and legislation and whatnot. And then we're going to also try and make sure that we go through the what's on your radar and the data acquisition calendar. We'll take a look at PD and 15. I'm saying 15, just kind of some refresher points that I'm going to be doing as far as the application goes. It is just for the IDEA application. So if you guys are CFSGA specific only, then this may not be for you. So please let me know if there's other information that you guys are looking at for the future. But I know that the federal programs team also puts on a great couple of trainings on their application annually. So I'm just admitting folks and kind of delaying here just a minute here. So give me just a quick second to keep admitting everybody. And then we'll get going. I promise everybody that's joining here at the last minute. So anyway, let's bump forward while I'm admitting folks. So let's talk about celebrations and shout outs. So many of you guys have actually already done your applications. And so you may just be here today to check on a few things. Like, let's just see if I did that part right or had a question about an exception, for instance. So really great job. Fall is here. What are you guys excited for? Are you guys excited for colder weather? We've had a really hot year. So throw your stuff in the chat as I continue to admit folks, but I just want to call out that a lot of you guys really have done a great job and already gotten those done. So let's do a little quick housekeeping from Department of Ed federal teams. So I'm going to talk about IDEA application today, just the highlights, but really just to remind you guys, the preliminary application is what was due in the spring. And sometimes I get folks that were confused because they think they were done. And really what happens is the preliminary application is what we call the MOE or maintenance of effort eligibility testing. And so that's when you guys have to say, yes, I'm going to budget enough money, but the final application is what's coming up due here in November that we're going to kind of run through today. And that's where we do more of a compliance testing. So we're going to go through and see what did you guys actually spend from last fiscal year, because there's two different levels of the application and two different pieces that we're trying to pull together for maintenance of effort to qualify you guys for that grant. Okay. And then let's just pop through CFSGA reminders that the federal programs team has been very busy finalizing you guys' applications as well. So just be aware that if there's any other comments or actions needed, that they'll let you know what you need to do, and that you may need to resubmit that application. Same goes for mine. If there's stuff when I'm doing the IDEA application that I'm scratching my head, I'm not sure if you guys quite hit it, I'm going to send it back to you. Just put it back in your queue to make another edit and then to resubmit. Okay. So let's also touch base on expiring funds alerts, because many of you guys know that that we had a lot of funds that expired in September. And so with that, just know that as you guys are doing those drawdowns, yes, you have that closeout period, but let's not leave any money on the table. If at all possible, make sure that you guys are drawing down those funds and getting your books all shored up as soon as possible. Now, I had a couple folks asking me in various emails, like, hey, this SLD grant, this specific learning disability, I don't know what I can and can't do. So I'm just a reminder what this is for, that these funds are supposed to help support getting trained on the different changes that we have put together, that, to become more compliance ourselves in there. So you should have received your grants by now. They should be in the GRA for you. They are retro to July 1st in case you guys were doing any training over the summer. And I'm just going to admit a couple more people. Hold on just a sec, you guys. But then with that, I've gotten a lot of questions specifically about, well, what kind of trainings can we attend? And so I wanted to make sure that I put this slide together that gave a little bit more of question and answer for you guys, because there's been a lot of SLD trainings. There's been the SESTA regional trainings that you may have attended, and you can use this mini grant to help pay for your subs. You can use it to help do the modules if you want to have additional staff, and they need to get paid for some off-duty time, or for substitutes or whatever it was. But I also have some examples of trainings that were not approved, but we've had a lot of good questions coming in, and the SESTA comprehensive evaluation is actually going to be covered under that. So yeah, if you guys have other questions about specific conferences or things that you might be attending and you want to see if it might be applicable to that SLD funding, please let us know. We want to make sure that we can answer those questions for you. Okay, now let's jump in and recap last month. So last month we talked about working budgets, and it was a perfect timing because we're doing these applications, right? We're really busy doing that shore up. We're doing our audits. We're trying to determine if there were any other carryovers and all those things, so that you guys can update your budgets at home, and make sure that your staff and that your board also know what kind of carryover funding on top of new allocations you guys may have available to you. So these were the codes we talked about. Idaho State Code also talks about how you have to have a budget and be appropriated to spend, and that we know that those things change. You guys do your best in the spring. It's like a stab in the dark, because you don't know what your carryover is because you're not done spending. So we have built that into our applications for those federal grants. It's new this year for the CFSGA, and we have that built into the IDEA application. And it's really important that you guys make sure that you're keeping track of not just the new grant, but any carryover, any finalized amounts that you didn't spend from the prior year, so that you have that incorporated. Now, appropriations and transparency, that's the board piece, right? They're the ones that give you the permission per se, to be able to spend anything. And so, sorry, I'm still admitting folks, guys. As I'm admitting people. Okay, so the budget needs to be reasonable. It needs to demonstrate the funds are being appropriated and that you guys are going to use them as intended. And it's also going to be talking about that it's accurate. That's what all these different CFRs are for. The budget to actual tracking. This is the piece inside your audits. You also have that. You have a couple of schedules that you have to track the financial results of those grant funds. So you guys need to make sure that you're comparing expenditures to budgets in your active working budgets throughout the year, not just the applications once a year when you do the final reporting. So just make sure that you've got that extra budget column updated, even if it's a side spreadsheet, some way to keep track of something as you're spending it throughout the year. Now, we were just talking about carryover. Carryover is the big one. You can't usually forecast exactly. You might come a little close, but that's where, we want to make sure that you guys are incorporating all of that together for the carryover funds. Okay, and then staff changes too. That's the one that usually gets folks in the fall, is because you thought you were going to hire X amount of people, but then you weren't able to in the end. And so try and make sure that you guys are accounting for all of that as best you can. If you need to change it from a contracted service to staffing or vice versa, that you make sure that you're able to address that. One more person to admit. Okay. We're doing our best. Okay, so we're doing our best here, but we want to make sure that you guys are able to associate any of those carryover funds, Title I dollars, anything that it might be from that last quarter that you didn't spend, and that you guys are going to follow that first in, first out rule and make sure you spend the oldest money first. Now, the reason again that we have all these carryovers is because we have these long 27-month periods in some cases to be able to spend. And that's a long time, right? And sometimes, depending on the funding source, you may or may not have as much leeway on what you can carry over. So make sure that you're checking with the grant managers to see if you need to apply for a special carryover amount, or how much you're allowed to carry over in the first place. Okay, now budget to actuals in the financial statements, that we were talking about those schedules too. And that's because of GASB 34. So make sure that you guys, when you're looking at the budgets on on your annual basis, that you're getting ready for those financial statements as well, because it's all about transparency. Okay, again, this is just our recap from last month, but we want to make sure that you guys have a working budget protocol. That's something that kind of seemed to be foreign to some folks, and we found that out when we were doing fiscal monitoring. So with the fiscal monitoring, I was able to find out that there are folks that just really did not know. Right? They just did not know that they needed to have this. And so they said, well, I have it in my application. But what we're trying to make sure that you guys know is that your general ledger is going to tie out to the GRA. It's huge, right? Huge. So make sure that when you're doing that reconciliation with your accounts receivable and everything else under the sun, that your budget columns match to your GRA amounts, and also back to your application and your budgetary amounts that you're seeing in those two different applications, both the IDEA app and the CFSGA. So the budget supervisor, or business manager, or whoever it might be, somebody needs to be able to do a periodic analysis, right? Somebody needs to be able to go in and try and make sure that everything is still aligning. And if you guys find discrepancies, that's where we need you to let us know. We need you to say, hey, I'm looking in the GRA and my balance doesn't seem to be matching what I have on my books. Things happen, right? We may have not reduced something, or we may not have carried it over for you in the right way on our side. So please let us know if you're not able to tie out, because it's super important that you're able to do that, because you guys are essentially reporting back to your board on all these numbers. So we need to make sure that they're transparent and that they're accurate. Now, the last thing that I talked about last month was, don't forget time and effort when you're doing these working budgets, right? So best practice is for you guys to be revising your budgets throughout the year at least once or twice, semi-annually, but also with time and effort to follow that same timeline. Because let's say again that somebody got promoted, or you had to backfill somebody differently, or split their salary, or now all of a sudden so-and-so is going to work for title programs, and you moved her out of this other one. So make sure that you guys are updating throughout the year the time and effort to match however the pay splits may have changed. I know that sometimes that seems like a big task, and it is. Let's call it what it is. But you need to make sure that those are updated, because last thing you want to do is make the mistake of billing the wrong grant for the wrong person. We need to make sure that the time matches who and what the work provided behind it is. So just make sure that you guys are taking a look at that on a regular basis. Okay, now I don't have a lot here for you guys for our updates legislatively, but these are just from last month as well, that Debbie Critchfield's got a little bit of a boost this year. They're trying to make some changes in the structure of the way that they've got the discretionary budgets, and collapsing a couple of other funding sources. But they're also proposing this new weighted formula again, that's going to really try and address your populations for who you're actually serving. So we're really excited excited about that. And we're also really excited about the opportunity to go out for what we're calling a special needs fund. It's kind of like a high cost fund for those students that may be attending a day treatment plant. Maybe they're attending West Data's Deaf Hard of Hearing program, but maybe this is a 2 or 3 times as much as your other students' cost. And so for special education, that could be huge. So we're really excited to pitch that this year and hopefully get an allocation for you guys as emergency funding and just as an extra piece that you guys could fall back on. Now, federal news and legislation, last month we were like, hey, we're not sure what's going to happen, but they actually did pass the short-term spending bill. It only goes through a part of December, but it is going to get us past the election. And you guys probably know just as well as anybody else that they wanted to make sure that they had funding available, but it didn't become political. They just wanted to get through the election, and then they'll get to determine what they want to do with the budgets. But with that continuing resolution, there were not any changes really that impacted ed. So we'll just be keeping an eye on that as these bills come through after the election, and we'll give you an update and say, here's what's happening to title funding, here's what's happening to IDEA funding. We'll give you those updates as soon as we get them. Okay, what's on your radar? Again, we don't want to forget what's on our radar. We actually have a McKinney-Vento thing due today. So October has been a really busy month. So if you're taking a look at the data acquisition calendar and you may have just missed a date because there were quite a few on the 15th, then please reach out to the person, the contact 1 or 2, and make sure that you can, figure out what you need to do and what you need to submit so that you're in compliance. And that you get funding associated with those things. A lot of these data submissions you guys recognize are tied to funding. So we know that they're cumbersome, these IC uploads, but just know that if you have questions, there's people here to ask. So make sure that you reach out to those contacts 1 or 2. Don't want to lose track. Gosh, you guys have all the iFarm stuff coming up due. Everybody's wrapping up their audits. So as those things come together, just make sure that you guys have a game plan in place. I want to just take a quick peek here at November. There's a couple more things tied to me specifically, my IDEA application. But there's child count coming up, a snapshot in time where you're going to associate what students you have regarding special ed. So all these different pieces that you've got your Title I comparability report due. So make sure, again, you have a game plan. Somebody is assigned to each piece here so you don't lose track of these things. So we want to make sure that you guys get funded appropriately. Okay. Now, let's do some PD, and I say 15 because we're going to talk 15 minutes, then we're going to jump in and I'm going to share a different screen, you guys, because I want to kind of go live and take you guys into the application so that we can walk through some of the pieces that you guys get stuck on. And I want you guys to come off so that you guys have a chance to ask those questions and say, hey, I'm trying to do an exception, what could that be? So this is where we're going to get into IDEA very specific, but before I go any further, I did see that there was a question in the chat about the SLD mini grants. It's basically for funding for training only, and that's what they asked. And yes, that's what it's for. The SLD mini grant is to help you guys get trained on those changes, so that you guys are fluent in that. Okay, now let's jump into the application. I always start with this slide because really most of the stuff has to be filled out by the business manager. And the reason I put this together is because we have a lot of SPED directors that maybe you guys had access to a report, but it maybe wasn't the final audited report. And so what was happening is the application was not tying out to the GRA or to the budgets, to the audits. We would come in and do a fiscal monitoring, and it just came down to, bad reports or just timing differences. So we say business manager on a lot of these sections because you guys are the ones that are going to be staring at the audit. You guys are doing the audit. So again, it's a heavy lift. You definitely want your special ed director to be, as much part of this as possible so that they're aware of this, so that it's, on their radar for their budgets, but also that they are going to need to help you with the child count pieces. And that ties out to your excess cost page and also maintenance of effort. And you can hit a threshold on a per student basis. So that's definitely got to be your SPED director for those pieces. But again, the big heavy lift in here is the business manager, because you guys are staring at the ledgers. Okay. I also want to talk about the preliminary versus the final, because we've gotten a lot of people that said, how come I didn't get my money yet? I did the application in June. Yes, in May and June, you guys did the preliminary, and that was you guys saying, hey, I want the money. Here is a budget for me to show I will meet that level of effort. I'm going to spend at least the same or more than I have out of my old state and local general funds to make sure that I'm maintaining that level of effort. That's what that spring version is. But then we have to open up the final application in the fall. And we do it in the fall because this is when you guys have your actual audit. So this is where all the final total actual expenditures from last year hit the books, right? And now you guys are going to have what's called that other MOE compliance test. So you're actually going to compare expenditures this time and say, not only did I budget correctly last spring to make sure I'm going to hit that number and maintain that level of effort, but I'm proving out to you that I actually did it. And that makes you eligible. Those two pieces make you eligible then for the IDEA funding. So here we are in the fall. And it's a big, heavy lift, but I want to make sure that you guys understand that this is another time for you guys to update your budget. I kind of call it the garbage budget, and I joke about that in the spring because you just don't really know. But now you do. So the budget has to be revised too with those carryover pieces, and we talked about that. So I just want to make sure that you guys understand that it's not that you did something wrong in the spring, you did everything right, but you have to do those two pieces. And this is the actual expenditure part that we're going to dive in. Now, I just have a couple of slides to point out as we talk through, and then we're going to actually go do it live. But meeting maintenance of effort, this is an older screenshot, but when you go to your maintenance of effort section on the application, there's this threshold table is what we call it. And it's going to highlight in yellow the amounts that you need to meet. And it also shows it down at the bottom, but it's very transparent. It shows all the years back to 2012. So something to help you understand too, is this is going to tell you the school year of the application, but this is going to show you the fiscal year that your eligibility came from. So this is the section 1. It's going to show you those combined totals that you would see in that other section 1 tab. And so when we do the budgets in the spring, it's highlighting to you the last time that you guys actually reported to me. And usually that's a year old, because let's think about this. Last spring in June, you hadn't finished out the 23-24 school year. So you guys were basing your budgets for the 24-25 school year off of the 22 to 23 school year expenditure thresholds. So it's kind of old. We don't know exactly what that new amount's going to be yet. So it's kind of, again, a shot in the dark. You're going to have a lower threshold typically in the spring when you're doing the budgetary maintenance of effort. But then when we get into this final application, you'll have to redo it again. You'll be reporting in section 2 on the actual expenditures from the most recent school year. And that's probably going to raise slightly your eligibility and those numbers for maintenance of effort going forward. Now, section 2, this is what section 2 looks like, and it's always going to tell you which year you're reporting on. This is a screenshot from a couple of years ago, but it has all the pieces that I feel like it's a good one. So we want to make sure that you guys are reporting your Medicaid state match, not the amount that you may have sent if you send a big balloon payment to health and welfare, just the amount that you use to process claims. So make sure you're not inflating maintenance of effort by putting a big round figure in there. We just want the part that you used. We also want you to look up transportation, other professional development funds, anything else that you might have had that came out of state and local dollars to help you meet that maintenance of effort and to truly capture the cost, okay? Because when you think about it, we don't want to shortchange ourselves. Right now, all these conversations we're having with the legislature about trying to make this more meaningful on these weighted expenses is that we're taking data out of the application and out of your iFarms reporting, and we're saying, hey, look what it costs the schools out of their state and local funding. it's a big hit, but if we don't capture it accurately, then we're shortchanging ourselves, and we're trying so hard right now to make that argument of why we need to have a weighted funding mechanism, especially for special ed, because we know that those students do cost more to serve. So anyway, make sure when we're on this maintenance of effort section that we're really diving in and gathering all those other pieces, and that we're making sure this is accurate, and we're not reporting the Medicaid revenue. Years and years ago, that's what we used to do. Now we're just actually capturing match. Match is the only piece that we need to capture for the maintenance of effort. Okay. All right. And now, again, I have it again, just so you don't forget, but I'm putting in here too, you're not just going to do it in section 2, you'll actually need to do it in section 3 too. So when you're doing the budget piece, you'll have to also make sure that you've captured match. Okay, now I get this question a lot. How do I even know if I'm in the final application? The easiest is that you'll see the prior year tab open up. And so if you don't see a prior year and all you see is budget, then you haven't opened up your application. And I'm going to show you how to do that. You actually have to go hit save on any of the other sections, and it'll open up the prior year for you. So you've done the preliminary. If you haven't got back in it for a while, go hit save on some page and it will open up the other sections. And then you'll start seeing the expenditure pieces open up on all the different sections for the school-aged, preschool, and from maintenance of effort. Okay. So that is your telltale sign. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I also want to call out the exception worksheets. Some of you guys don't take exceptions because you're like, well, I'm just going to keep going and I seem to exceed it every year anyway. But maintenance of effort is all year long, and I cannot stress that enough. You guys, you have keep a journal. What changed? Did, little Susie, who is a high cost student for you, move out of your district, and now you don't have at one to one for her? And so, you need to make some adjustments to the staffing that you may have thrown at maintenance of effort if you've lost staff somewhere else. All those different things that happen throughout the year, you might not remember it in the fall for what happened last school year and last November. So I say, keep a journal. Sped directors, you guys, when you meet, you should meet on a regular basis with your business office. At least quarterly is a great recommendation. And I know that there's a lot of great practices going around the districts right now, trying to make sure that you're making those meaningful conversations happen on a regular basis, because it is, again, hard to capture. Why are we underspent again? Oh, yeah. Well, what if you don't remember? If you don't remember, that's a problem. You're going to have to go dumpster diving, as I call it. But the exception worksheets are really also something that you can put together in the budget. That's you forecasting that, hey, this current school year of 2024-25, we are anticipating that our budget is going to drop because these kiddos left, we had a drop in child count, or we couldn't backfill some positions, that kind of stuff. We had voluntary departures. There's only these exact reasons that you can actually lower it. So that's why I'm calling this out in an actual slide. Okay, so make sure that if you're doing an exception for the expenditure, that's from what happened last year that you just closed out. If you're doing a budget exception over here, that's going to be something you're anticipating is happening this year. And it is okay if it doesn't come to pass. That's the other thing I get questions on. Well, should I put that budget exception in there? Because what if I exceed that? No harm, no foul, but at least you have that captured. So when you also put these together, you have to upload documentation for staffing changes, and there'll be an add file button in here. And so do your diligence, add all that, because if it does come to pass, all your documentation's there and you literally copy it into the New Year's application. It was ready to go for you, and you don't have to go dumpster diving to try and find that backup documentation to qualify for the expenditure exceptions. So again, if you think you're going to have something where you may have qualified, take the exception, document that, this is what happened. Even if you exceed it, at least that you're putting it out there for your, transparency that what happened as you guys keep track. Now, something else that threw a few people off, and this is my bad for not sending it out. This one goes out to Austin. I think he was like, how did this go? What's going on? Why can't I get this to fill out? I made an application enhancement this year, you guys. So when you're in the excess cost page, you're going to first want to fill your enrollment in. And you'll notice that these boxes in red now are a salmon color. And these were the spots where you'd already filled in your expenditures in the other sections. And then I made you split it out in here. Well, I didn't make you, this is a federal formula, but it was painstaking and you guys had already reported it. So we did some math on the behind the scenes and now it will import in. So once you've filled out your expenditure reporting in those other sections, it's going to import in here, but it won't do that until you fill out your enrollment because it's based on this. It's going to split it out for you based on the enrollment. So as soon as you get that filled in, it's going to calculate here and then it's going to suck these in for you. And it's really magical. So if you were stuck on this page and couldn't figure out how come you couldn't type in these, that's why. And we're going to also talk about where to look a little bit on the expenditures for the this section up here. And this comes from the audit pages. So we'll take a look at this because this is another question I get a lot of times is where do I get these big numbers from? And it comes from one of your schedules in your financial statement. So we'll take a look at that. But I want you to be excited about this page because it's super exciting. Okay, before I move on to doing the live version with you guys, do we have questions that you know, gosh, this doesn't make sense to me, Lisa. Why would you do this? Do we have any questions that we want to pause and reflect on? I've got the chat open. I'm going to stop sharing briefly, and I'm going to get ready to share it in my other screen, and we are going to fill out an application together. Okay. Well, keep your questions coming if you do have them. I'm trying to watch the chat. Okay, so you guys can see my new screen now, I believe. Can you guys see my application, everybody? Yeah? Hold on. Before I do that. Okay. Okay, before I do that, I've got a couple people in the waiting room again. So let me admit them. Okay. Okay, guys, so here we are. We're in beta. So you guys get to see this ugly beta thing. But the reason I'm doing this is I wanted to call out that if you guys see that, you know, something shrunk like this, it means you haven't filled in this first home screen. And so you've got to start with this page and you got to say, yep, I don't have private schools and I'm going to be doing state and local funds for maintenance of effort. And then when you hit save, it opens up all these other sections, right? So as you guys go through the application, and sorry about my dogs, you guys, I'm at home today, but as you guys go through the application, you'll see on the left, there's all the different sections and you're just going to kind of go down 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down on the left side of the page. That's how you're going to navigate in this application. And I find that, you know, it always does. It's always better if you're hitting save constantly as you're going through the application. So just make sure that you're saving or you guys might get frustrated. I'm so sorry if you lose data. Anyway, so we've opened this one up. Here we are, and we're in Canvas. We're just in beta. Most of you guys don't elect CEIS money to address it's a voluntary addressing of if you guys are possibly over-identifying different student populations, but most of you guys don't do that and it's voluntary. If you do want to do it, if you guys are you guys have had those determinations and you guys are year 2 or getting close to year 3, and you guys want to set some money aside to help address that before you get identified as significantly disproportionate, this is where you would do that. And you would add a narrative plan and work with Debbie Smith and myself to put that plan together. Okay, school-wide. I get a lot of questions about school-wide, and you guys put in all these narratives. We don't have a single school in Idaho doing school-wide because it's difficult to articulate FAPE. So if you do want to do a school-wide plan, you do need to let me know. But when you're in here, you need to save however many students you're serving, but you're probably going to need to fill in a 0 here. And if you ever fill in a budget amount here and you hit save, it will actually pull that amount out of your school-aged budget. So if I had put an amount in there and I go over to my school-aged budget, it would have pulled it out right here and said, oh, I'm going to do, school-wide, I'm going to do a school-wide program, and it would pull that budgetary amount out. So if you guys are ever in here and you see stuff filled in you didn't mean to, usually it's because you guys put in something into that school-wide program section in here in the budget. So again, make sure that that goes back to 0. Okay, now let's get into the budget. As you guys are putting, this was the preliminary, you guys filled out the budgets, but when you guys get into the final application, you're going to be putting together the expenditures. So I wanted to walk through a couple of these. Let me just make sure, yeah, I have a couple of these pulled up for you guys. So in this one, again, I'm in beta. I'm looking at Blaine County. Let's go back to school-aged budgets. And here you'll note again the prior year expenditure. So we're just kind of going down the left side of the screen on this one. And you've got your prior year tab that you're going to be filling out, your actual expenditures. Now in this one, this person's going to have exceeded their budget. So not the best one. But what I want to make sure you guys know that is if you guys have a budget in here and you guys are off by 10% or more, that could be a finding that you guys aren't doing accurate budgeting. So please make sure throughout the year, if you have something that you really need to revise that budget, when you guys go to do GRA claims that we take a look at that as well. So make sure that you guys are updating that as soon as you can, so that when you get to the end of the year and you're doing this reporting, you have the right categories, right? Otherwise, it's going to look not so great when you're doing your reporting. Anyway, so in here, this is where you're going to tell me exactly what you did. You're going to make sure that you've articulated all the different pieces. And then if you didn't spend out you're going to have to revise your budget. So in this case, let's say I only spent 230 some odd thousand. I'm going to hit save. It's going to tell me that, hey, you have more than a 10% budget. How come? And the reason I wanted to show you this is that IDEA allows you to carry up to 100%. I don't recommend it, but you can. So you just have to tell me why. So you're going to say, we couldn't backfill some positions. Something like that. So you're going to have to tell me why it was, and then you're going to have to confirm to me and say, yes, I'm confirming that I'm going to make a working budget. That's what all of these are. So it's going to tell me my carryover down here, and I'm going to hit save. Now it's going to tell me that I'm not balanced, because it's going to bring my carryover right into my next revision to my budget. I'm doing a working budget right here. Essentially, I'm going to say, yep, that's my new allocation. I've got 500,000 from last year. Boy, if I hadn't put this into my working budget for my board, I would be, hiding $500,000. Not maliciously, but you can see why it's important to make sure that you update your own ledger budgets. If you have this much money sitting in the GRA and you're the only one that can see it, that's not transparency. And so please never say blah, blah, blah. But when you're doing your budgets, I want to make sure that you guys note that it would let you put in a negative amount, but you don't want to do that. So you're going to just go through here. You're going to revise your budget. You're going to tell me your new categories. And that's where, again, we joke that you had a garbage budget. Now it's going to actually be fruitful and be, representative of what you're working on this year. Now that you've finalized your budgets, now that you've finished all your carryover, you're revising it here for me. Okay, so you're just going to keep working through the left side. I don't want to lose track of private school, and that's why I had put this one up. If you do have a private school, during the preliminary application, we had, you're going to put your best guess in, but you have the opportunity to edit in here now. So if you need to make an adjustment in here, you don't have to start all over. This is where you'll add the schools and put together the total count of your child count plus how many students were eligible. And when you put those numbers in there, it's going to calculate in here how much that proportionate share will be. And this amount will then transfer itself over to your school-aged budget. So in this case, if I scroll down, sorry, I'm in the wrong spot. And when I scroll down, it's going to show me there's my 10,000 for my private school proportionate share. Okay, so when you're making those edits here, just note that it's then going to change it in here, which is going to mean you're probably going to have to revise your budget again because it may have raised it or lowered it, and now it's not going to be balanced. So you'll get these errors when you're not balanced. Okay, now this is the last year you should have had ARP. If you had last year, you may have some expenditures left, but most of you guys won't have anything in here for either of the ARPs. Now, when you get into local maintenance of effort, state and local maintenance of effort, here's your threshold tables, okay? It's going to pull in, it's not in this case because I'm in beta, but it's going to pull in your amounts from the prior year, and then you're going to fill in your different maintenance of effort from the last school year, what actually happened, okay? And I have a couple different versions here that here's one from Boise. Same thing here. We're in section 2, we're in the final application. It says always at the top what section you're going to be filling out, what period it's for. It's telling you your iFarms accounts. This is your general fund, 521, which is special ed school age. 522 is your preschool. This is your ancillary, kind of your non-instructional supports costs here. And I get questions a lot, like from SPED directors and a couple of other folks where they can't remember where to find some of these things. And so real quickly, I wanted to pull this up for you guys. Can you guys still see my screen? Can you see the expenditure? Are you guys seeing
Yes.
the statement of revenues? Okay. Okay, so here I am, I'm looking at Blaine County, it's the prior year, but what I wanted to call out for you guys is when you're doing excess costs and when you're doing maintenance of effort, if you look at the statement of revenue and expenditures, changes in fund balance, it's usually towards the beginning of an audit. This one is on page 18-ish. This is the page where it's going to show you the exceptional child program. This is going to be the 10521, and this is that 10522. So you can get those numbers in here as well. And you would have any other ancillary programming down here. Here's another version. This one is same page, it's just a different audit book from a different auditor, but same thing. You'll see this one says special education, that's school age, and they would have preschool here. Down here, they have that special education support services. That's that 100,616. We're looking at general fund right here. And these are some of the best pages for you guys to tie out to. And we do a tie out to these pages as well. Now, so when you're filling out these pages, that's one place you can look if you don't have access to the accounting system. Okay, now the budget, the other piece about the budget this year is that we have a validation in place. So new to us. So last year, it didn't matter so much, but you guys may have had your application kicked back to you because let's just say this went up from what it was the prior year. Sometimes I'll have to kick back your application and say, I need you to raise the budget now, because if I don't kick it back to you, you may not be spending enough for the new year. So just note that if I'm telling you need to raise your budget, it's because you raised your threshold already, and I want you to be on target to hit the right number, not to be budgeting based off of 2 years ago's data, which was from the preliminary application. So if you guys get an error when you're in here, take a look at section 2 and say, oh, that's my new threshold. That's when you're going to make that adjustment here to section 3 and just up the budget. Now, again, here's our worksheets for our exceptions. So this is your chance to add the documentation and tell me why you're trying to reduce maintenance of effort. So you don't get very many chances to do that. This is your one chance during the year. So if you do have something that qualified in these very specific terms, you definitely want to put it in there. And again, we were talking earlier, put it in there even if you don't know if it will come to pass. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But if it does, you're going to add the files and you've already done the work for yourself for the next year. So that's super key for you guys. So as you guys are putting these in, I can't approve it unless you guys add a file. When you click on that button right there, it will allow you to upload a document for me to show me the voluntary departure, like a resignation letter or whoever it might have been, so that I can validate those exceptions for you. Some of these will automatically fill. Anytime you see a salmon colored, this orangish colored here, that means that it's going to automatically fill in, and it's smart enough to talk to itself and note if you guys had a drop in child count, and it will calculate for you. So some of these exceptions are automatic, and when you're over here, it would automatically tell you, and you can say yes if you want to do that. Now back to maintenance of effort. Here's section 2. We're doing our expenditures from last year through June 30th of 2024. Don't forget your Medicaid match. But I want to call out the adjustment to local efforts too. This is something that not as many people had this year because we didn't see a lot of growth in the allocations. If you got an increase to your allocation, though, it's going to tell you, and it's going to allow you to take half of that increase as an exception. Why? Because they say that, hey, if you got more IDEA money, we're going to allow you to spend just a little bit less of the state and local maintenance of effort. So this is very rare to get. So I would encourage you to say yes to this if you want to take it, unless again, you just know that your maintenance of effort is going to continue to grow, grow, grow. But again, you don't get to take this very often. So it's saying down here, it's also subject to 300.205 requirements. And really what that's saying is that you have to make sure that you spend it on something else that's covered under the ESEA. If you are reducing maintenance of effort, you're going to reabsorb that into something else that's covered under the ESEA. So that's all that's giving you that for. So again, if you're not qualified for this, this will be grayed out and you won't be able to fill it in. But in this example, this person can type it in. They don't have to take the 26, they could take 5,000, but that's another way to help drop your maintenance of effort. So as you guys continue through these sections, you're going to give me your expenditures through the year, then you're going to revise your budgets. Okay, so you're working your way through. Then you're going to get to your excess cost page. This is where these guys are going to fill in for you, and these salmon ones are going to just import for you because you filled out these sections down here. So again, this is brand new this year. If you guys were frustrated before because you couldn't figure it out, again, I apologize. As soon as you guys fill in this section with the actual enrollment, these will import from those other sections that you've already filled out. Now you don't have to split it out by the categories. And back to the financial statements that we were looking at. These are those total state and local funds and federal funds that we were looking at on that statement of revenue and expenses that you can pull from the audit. And then some of these other numbers that you're reporting in the excess cost to me, those can come out of your CFA page, which is usually the very back of an audit book. And I call that out because if you're doing IDEA specifically and you're not familiar with what got spent on title, it's in your CFA. So that's that schedule of expenditure of federal awards. It's at the back of the audit. Okay. So that's a great place to pull these numbers in. Now, I always get this question too. What is the purpose of this excess cost page? Well, this is us capturing the total amount that we're spending on SPED students as a gen ed student. In addition to, so we're going to whittle out in addition to the IDEA or title, which can be spent on SPED. So we're whittling out these and saying all these other things from these giant numbers up here, we're going to say also benefit students with disabilities. So we're saying this is what we're also investing kind of as a gen ed expense to these SPED students. So it's something that every LEA in the country has to do. So, if you have questions when you're doing that, let me know. But again, when you're looking at these pages here, the statement of revenue expense, these are good places to look in these first pages to get those total federal, total state, all those different numbers are going to be in those first financial statements. And then I was going to show you guys, I think I put down a note for the CFA. Here's the CFA that I was talking about, this is going to show you your title money. If you didn't know that number to stick in there, your auditor's already done it for you, or maybe you're the business manager and you've filled out this page for the audit. But all these numbers are going to tie out right here, and that's what you can use to fill in that page. All right, now the last couple of things I wanted to talk about was real briefly, and I can't do it on that one, assurances. So when you guys do assurances, do you guys get confused when you're doing the assurances? Anybody? Trying to find one in beta that I can show you. I did a fake one here for CUNA. um, when you're doing the assurances, whoops, this one isn't there either. You have to say yes to everything or it won't go through. So if you get stuck on any of those, or if you miss a bullet point, it will say that you can't submit. It'll just say save and submit later, and that meant you missed a question. But then the fiscal self-assurance and accountability statements, these you can add documentation files if you need to. Sometimes we will ask you to add some documentation behind some of these. Typically we don't. Next year we will, because we're going to be revising the whole special ed manual. We'll have to ask you guys to readopt it. We'll likely be asking for that board minutes in there. But these are all just questions that help us know if you've had turnover. It helps us assess your risk. So these questions that you're filling out are going to help me know if you guys have turnover, that you may need more help, or that you may have higher risk because you just have new people. So nothing that you've done wrong. That's what these are for. Okay, now somebody told me too that some of my links weren't working, and so I'll be updating these. I was told that the video wasn't working, so we've been doing some changes with our webpage, so I just need to make sure that those are fixed for you guys. But as we've been whittling through, I want to make sure that you guys have a chance to ask questions. Are there pieces of the application, like inside maintenance of effort, anywhere that you guys get stuck or hung up on that don't make sense to you, that you guys want to stop and ask questions about? I've got one from Jadine in here, and she was saying, I was filling mine out and I had some troubles about the budget expenditures. Then it said I had funds for. Okay, but you did have them in the GRA. So, and you may have come in earlier or later from when I had said, you got to make sure you tie out to the GRA. So if you don't, when you guys are in here, I'm so glad you brought that up. When you guys are in the school age budgets, if the amounts that you're seeing, including the carryover that you may have pulled in, don't match the GRA, you got to let us know. Either let myself know or let one of the federal programs folks know if you have that being the case when you're doing the CFSGA, but you've got to make sure you tie out. And I have found some wonky things that's usually it's timing, because think about it this way. Your auditors came in and you guys had to rebalance Medicaid, and let's just say Medicaid had an extra payment come in, so you guys had to sort out all of the maintenance of effort and the IDEA, this or that, and maybe, just maybe, you had a really late accrual payment, but you had already done the application. So I found this usually 3 or 4 years ago is what it will be. There was some late accrual, and I'll see the late accrual payment in the GRA, but the application never had that reflected in there. And so it has to do with the timing and which year it got posted back to. So I'm lucky that I have some sections in here where I can make a prior year adjustment. So if you guys, let me go to a live one here. If you guys are in there and you get stuck, just let me know, because I can make those adjustments. I have what's called, here it is, adjustment to prior carryover. So I can make it in the application, but sometimes I need to make it in the GRA. So that's really key for you guys to help me know. At some point, we want to do a full audit for all of you guys. I just don't know when it will happen, to see, does the application amount match the GRA? And I know federal programs is working on that as well. But hopefully we're making sense here to you guys, that if for some reason there was a late accrual and it wasn't reported in one, or it was pulled down in the GRA, that could be one of those mismatch. Okay. Anybody else have questions? stuff that you guys get stuck on. You got to make sure that you hit save somewhere. Another thing I want to call out, if you guys are missing your 619, which is your preschool allocation, sometimes people will be like, I don't have a preschool allocation. How come? It's because you probably clicked this box that said, I don't want to apply for preschool funds. And the reason we have this is because we have a lot of charter schools that don't have any 5-year-olds in kindergarten. And so they don't want the funds. And I recycle it back out to you, the other districts. So if you are missing a preschool allocation, just go back here and uncheck that and hit save, and it should open up your preschool budget for you. So if you get in here ever and you're missing and you just don't have it at all, that would be why. And I'm just, again, trying to poke around on some of the things I think that you guys might get stuck on. And this one I'm in live. So let's see. Yeah, and whenever you guys have a bunch of errors here, like in this case, this person tried to submit the application and it's saying all these other things aren't done. So it's not going to let you even get to answer those questions until you get really close. And then you also have the opportunity to unsubmit if you need to make a revision. So please make sure that you do that throughout the year if you need to, or just a lot of folks right when they're doing the application will have one last adjustment they need to make. Even if I've already approved it, I can reapprove it for you. So I just want to make sure you guys know that. So sorry about my dogs, you guys. I have some crazy dogs today. But does anybody else have any other questions about like stuff they get hung up on, or just, frustrations? If you guys have things that could be enhanced, let me know. Ramona a couple years ago said it'd be really great if you would make it so I could edit my private school stuff, and we did it. I didn't have any idea that she had to keep going in and redoing all of it from scratch. So if there's something that you think would be helpful, please let me know. We know this thing is a bear, and actually mine is not a bear. I know the CFSG has so many other funding streams. That one probably feels a little bit harder than this one. This just has all these validation pieces that you have to do with maintenance of effort. And again, too, if you ever see anything weird in your tables, reach out. We import from iFarms. So if you had some other category that wasn't reflective in an iFarms data and it should have been, reach out because it may not have pulled in. These orange things are pulled in from iFarms when you guys do that fall report. So yeah, just let me know if you guys get stuck. All right. Well, I want to just thank everybody for coming on today. Anytime you guys have other ideas for things that you think could be helpful to the group, things that you guys have been stuck on, I think it's always super helpful when you guys bring these things up. Again, we don't want to make this harder than it needs to be. Reach out. That's what we're here for. That's my job. I'm not going to get mad if you ask me 5 times. Same with federal programs. That's our job. We're here to help you guys. So I want to make sure that you guys know that we're always here. And I want to make sure that before I let everybody go, do we have any other questions? Okay. Well, I don't think we do. So with that, I'm going to sign off and say thanks again for joining us, and everybody have a great day.